All right. And we have officially started this episode. And last week, I basically was talking about ascension. And all that really means is mastering yourself in every possible way that you can. Because in this life, we are basically here to learn, to put it simple. More than school is basically life itself. You know, there's different lessons. If you ask a Hindu, person, they'll talk about karma. They'll talk about, the good and bad karma, that eventually what you put out will come back. So that kind of concepts. But I want to just briefly do a little review of last week, but then kind of go even more into depth. So to start off, man does not simply have a soul. Man is the soul that inhabits the various bodies, the different bodies that I will momentarily address from an even higher perspective beyond soul. Man is spirit, a divine spark of that which we call God on earth. And it is this spirit that manifests as soul, which then incarnates upon the earth in order to grow, evolve, expand, and ultimately return home to spirit or God, bringing with it upon its return the unique individuality and spiritual treasures it has accumulated through its process of reincarnation in the material worlds. And, this might be new and this might be a lot for some people listening, and I'm with you. At one point I was an atheist, so this has all been really new to me. But basically, humanity does indeed reincarnate. And I want to momentarily say, for anyone who doesn't believe in that or understand what that is, it's as simple as this. Right now, wherever you are listening to this, that's all that exists. That just this moment, the awareness that you're here right now. You might be thinking about other stuff, but basically when you calm the mind and you become the observer for one of your thoughts and two of where you are, that's all that exists right now. That's all that's available to you, the now. And the past was the now of the past, and the future will be the now of the future. So if you don't ever take the time to basically just be wherever you are, you won't truly experience the now, because you'll be constantly waiting for the upcoming now, right? For example, today I had a test, and I could have been stressing about it the whole way to school, the whole way there, but it was about trying to be as prepared as I can. And then when the moment came to take that test, it was like, okay, well, now I'm focused only on the test, or try to be as much as possible, right? And reincarnation, all that is basically you are energy, the consciousness. You have had multiple experiences of which, we just don't remember, right? We don't remember what happened to us in a previous life. We don't remember the different experiences we've had. All that we truly know is this one life that we're living right now, because that's all there is. And basically, we're here and we're just doing one life at a time, right? Maybe there'll be a point in the future where we'll be remembering all the different lives we had, but that's just where we are right now. So basically, using each incarnation, you experience and ultimately master the various bodies. And with the development of the physical, the one we're all familiar with, you could also call it the etheric, right? That's the energy version of the physical body. And then there's the psychic / feeling body. And then there's the emotional / astral body. And then the mental body, because, those are all different aspects of our experience here, right? We're all familiar with this, the five senses, the touch, smell, vision, you could see, taste, and hearing. So those are the ones we're familiar with in terms of the body, in terms of the different, let's just say, lower bodies of living here on Earth, right? So I just want to kind of introduce that for now, but now I want to play another song, by one of my favorite artists. His name is Kendrick Lamar, and this is one of his most recent songs from his most recent album, and it's called Rich Spirit. So check out the lyrics. All right. I hope you enjoyed that song. That was Rich Spirit by Kendrick Lamar. And I kind of introduced the episode. Basically, I'm going to be talking about ascension, right? Which is basically, translated to mastering yourself while here on Earth, right? And another way of looking at it is even more the opposite, because there's always that duality. It's the ascension for one of the Earth experience, and then descension of what you truly are, the energy, the spirit itself, right? And what you're doing is basically anchoring that down from the higher dimensions, the higher realms, right? Use whatever word you prefer, but basically this physical reality is just one of many, right? And I want to just start off by talking about the different bodies real quick. So for one, the physical body, the most familiar with for everybody, is the one we use daily, the one that first meets the eye. And, like I said, the five senses with the physical body go with sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And it's the most immediate way we interact with the world. But equally obvious is the fact that these senses cannot be separated from our thought or feeling world, because we all use the entire four-body system to process the world around us, right? And now we transition over to the etheric body. And it's basically a subtler counterpart to the physical body, right? The etheric body interpenetrates the physical body and can be likened to a blueprint of the physical, right? Healers use the images from this body to diagnose difficulties within the physical body, and it is this form that is most often seen departing physical body immediately after death, right? And it's that connection to the body that just to give an example, an amputee feels what is called the phantom pain after removal of a limb, because the physical limb itself is not there anymore, but the blueprint stays until eventually it doesn't, right? And the etheric body also connects in a more subtle fashion to the world at large through subtle energy links, much though by no means all of the aura can be seen by the psychics who are able to perceive the emanations of the etheric form. And now we move on to the astral body, and it comprises the sensory and emotional world of each individual, and it also interpenetrates the physical body and the etheric body. And basically look at these as just different layers, right? Like an onion. Basically is the onion and the different layers that make up who we really are, right? And now we move on to the mental body, and it's the thought atmosphere of ourselves individually and our world collectively. This body penetrates the physical, etheric, and astral, and is of the higher frequency than the others. But in the four-body system of man, these bodies combine to form a cohesive whole. Thought is a very powerful aspect of ourselves, and through steady and concentrated focus can help bring forth into manifestation that which seems out of reach in the physical, right? And each thought has a distinct shape, size, and form to what we think, and we wear our thoughts about us in much of the same manner as we wear our clothing, but thoughts are made of a more enduring substance. And yet basically all things, as you might understand, is that they start with thought. Everything proceeds out of mind and then is acted upon into solidity and manifests into the physical plane. Without thought, humanity would basically be in the same that of animals, but it is that very substance of mind that denotes a human being. So basically, ascension requires us to master our four-body system so that we may act as co-creators with God, rather than reacting as victims of those less developed than ourselves. From one viewpoint, it's basically the raising or ascending of the energies of these four bodies into the higher aspects, which are basically light and love, and thus reflective of the divine itself. Key points to remember are that man/woman does not simply have a soul, but remember is the soul, and ultimately the spirit that inhabits the four-body system during the cycles of reincarnation upon the planes of matter, right? And the reason I'm even talking about this, the reason that that I feel now is the time to basically just throw it out there, right? Throw it out into the world, into the conversation, is because the way the world is going, it's a lot of divisiveness, a lot of conflict, and it's time to look at us as a collective and ask ourselves, what can we do better, right? And that's just the first question. But how can we continue to evolve, right? Because we talk about evolution in terms of the physical body and the way that the human body has adapted over the years, living on Earth, to weather, to climate, to the different the diets that we've had throughout the years, the human body. But the biggest thing is the evolution of consciousness, right? And what do I mean by this? It's first understanding that you are not your thoughts, you are not your mind, you're not your body. You are the energy that resides within you, right? Because what's one thing we say is that someone dies, but what really happens is their physical body, the one they use here on Earth to interact, is no longer livable for the energy that used to be in there, right? You could use the soul, spirit, any word you prefer, but basically that's the first step, is understanding that you yourself are a consciousness, an eternal being, right? That ultimately never dies, because you might not remember what was going on before, but that doesn't mean that that wasn't happening, right? So first is that. Second is understanding that there's the egoic self. The egoic self is the one, that we use to add identities, to add labels to us. And that self is the one that keeps us divided, to keeps us separate from each other. And basically the way I came to fully understand this is having to have lived it, having to be fully identified with all the thoughts in my head. Every now and then you might say, hey, I just got a weird thought. But what happens when you think all of those are basically you? You identify with every single one that comes across, right? So ascension, just to I'm still kind of introducing it, is basically you understanding that, right? Everything I just talked about, but then also now reflecting on yourself and asking yourself, what is it that I can do, for one, better, but to no longer be living in unconsciousness, to no longer be identified with the egoic self, with all the thoughts that go in the head, right? And I think that's good as an introduction, but I'm gonna move on to the next part. But before that, I'm gonna play this song up next called "A Horse with No Name" by America. And there's no real reason to this song. He doesn't fully go with it, but I just thought it was a really cool song to just, for one, to chill as a transition. So here we go. All right, we are back, and that song was called "A Horse with No Name" by America, and I just put that song as a transitionary, just to get us to the next part. Is basically first I talked about the bodies we all have, and next I want to kind of get into the realms, the different realms that exist, right? And the realm of matter, the one we're familiar with, the basic physical realm in which humanity daily walks the earth. It's the plane where the physical body makes physical contact, the realm most often called reality, right? But it's one of several planes of reality. And as many of you listening sense, this is the plane most often considered to be reality, and we're the most familiar with it, but we do not need to examine it except in the light of the other realms, and taking into account how the interpretation and energies from these other realms interact with the density of the physical, right? So I'm going to talk about the next is the etheric realm, right? It interpenetrates, as does the etheric body, and functions as a type of blueprint for this physical, right? So think of everything that's made up of physical, it's made up as an energy realm, right? And it has a dual purpose and manifestation. It is indeed the reflection of the physical world, but of a higher frequency and in a more perfect form. And it transmits and absorbs various psychic energies issuing forth from the physical realm to the etheric, or from the etheric realm to the physical, right? And all that means is a person's aura will permeate this realm even as it surrounds the person, him or herself. It will carry with it the vibrations or energy field of that person, reflecting either a pleasant or unpleasant aura, right? This realm also functions as a realm or plane unto themselves, right? And it hosts, and a lot of these, my concepts might be new, but basically ascended masters, once freed from the rounds of birth and death, might descend and set up a home and teaching center to work with disciples who are incarnated here in the physical realms. They do this so that they can be closer to humanity and help uplift us with vibrations of light, brought so close to the physical plane as to be but one step above so-called reality. And what does that mean? All it means is, there's this concept of ascended masters. And, if you don't like that term, think of them as individuals who've incarnated here on earth and fully understood what they truly are, fully understood that, for one, nothing separates us, right? We are all one. That's one of the realizations. And the other is that, everyone is basically you. And these masters, they had the lives that we all have. They've had the struggles, all the conflicts, basically all the lessons. And these are beings who watch over Earth in the sense of trying to be supportive, trying to be there for anyone who needs their help, right? And as humanity's vision keeps expanding, there are many reports of people seeing and communicating with these beings, right? And so basically understanding this is understanding the concepts of chakras. So you could start off with the soul star. A bright star about 6 inches above the head is an extension of the oversoul, right? Because basically it's a human and it's the soul, and that's the oversoul. That's ultimately think of it like a cable connecting it to the plug in the wall, right? That's the kind of that connection. And the top of the head is the 7th chakra, also known as the 1,000-petal lotus. When fully functioning, this is likewise seen as the aura drawn or painted around the head of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and saints merged with their God self. So that's like a reference to that, and that's how they're depicted a lot of times. And then there's the center of head, the 6th or 3rd eye chakra, related to the inner vision that we all have. Think of it as the intuition, the knowing of what your path is. And then next up, you got the throat, the 5th chakra, related to the thyroid, creativity, communication, and ultimately your God's will. Whatever you feel, you're supposed to spread. That's part of that. And then you got the heart chakra, the 4th chakra, related to the expression of unconditional love. And then you got the solar plexus, third chakra related to emotions, sacral plexus, second chakra related to the sexual organs, and at the base of the spine you have the first chakra related to the instinctive nature and basic survival. Right? And next up is the astral realm. What is that? The astral realm is a world unto itself. It's divided into subdivisions ranging from the lower astral worlds, people with less evolved souls, through various grades where the more evolved souls dwell between their life cycles. For souls to be found among the astral regions, the silver cord that links the soul with the physical body need not be disengaged, as it is at the time of so-called death. Right? That's all. Death basically is that disconnection of the soul to the body. Right? It's that unlinking of that cord. And the astral world is peopled by both incarnate but sleeping. Right? Think of it as like you have your dream. That's like the dream world for some that are in touch with that world. They visit. You have lucid dreams, but that's one part of it. And then there's also disincarnate entities, those people who have passed through the portals of death. And it's much like the physical realm, except that things have a greater luster and vision is of a truer and clearer nature. Right? Just to give an example, on Earth, one chooses the clothing one wears. On the astral realm, one forms clothing out of the nature of one's being, and it cannot help but reflect the inner nature of that person. Right? And the communities to which we are drawn are the direct result of the spiritual unfolding of the divine qualities within us. Those who have developed some degree of mastery over the lower animalistic desires and emotions, who have cultivated an appreciation of the arts and peaceful and loving harmony, will be drawn to a community of the similar souls. And as plane after plane is mastered and brought under the control of the higher self and monad, the monad is spirit, right? So there's the soul, then the spirit itself is you're basically your individual unique spark of the whole, right? Because think of, there's a collective consciousness, and that involves everyone and everything, but you have your individual, let's just say slice, right? Slice of the pie of the entire collective. And now we move on to the mental realm, and there are many similarities between the higher astral realms and the mental realm. Both planes contain varying frequencies, so that souls at various degrees of development can work their way up to the subplanes of these realms, until, as the lessons are learned and the mastery of certain levels is completed, they find themselves upon the higher levels of the plane. Right? And, just think of it like, you're a student and you go from kindergarten all the way to master's, PhD. That it's that type of framework, but not the exact same, because here on Earth, the education system was made by individuals, and, they had their own way of doing it. And basically, those are the realms so far. And another realm is the Buddhic realm. It's the plane next above the mental realm is the Buddhic plane. And in some occult literature, they'll refer to it as the causal plane. And this is where the higher self or oversoul has its true habitat. When the individual soul withdraws into that sphere, it is able to exist as pure consciousness and pure awareness. Right? One reason it's called the causal world is this plane is because it is indeed the realm of causation. From this plane, the soul can see the causes that it has set in motion and the steps that need to be taken in order to clear away any negative karma that is holding back its evolution. And now we move on to the Atmic plane. I will make future episodes talking about these even more in detail, but I want to get to the initiations. The Atmic plane is, once you are connected with the higher self to the aforementioned degree, the soul moves upward to the Atmic plane, where even the limitations of the soul body are broken. through, and the connection is then with the monadic self, or the mighty I am presence. The soul who has worked its way through the 4 lower bodies and the worlds back to its own realm, and thus to a direct connection with its essential self, monad, is now in place of perfect unity. Yet the soul retains its individuality, existing but one realm lower than the monadic plane itself. The soul is linked to the monad, which is in turn linked with this monadic group family, right? If anyone's not familiar with the word monad, just replace it with spirit, right? Because then the spirit is above the soul, because the soul basically is the one here on earth, and the spirit is its own home. It's like an extension. And once it joins this monadic family to work, it works from a place of total oneness and beingness, right? And right after that is the Logoic plane. The Logoic plane, which is actually the full realization of the monad, or the mighty I am presence, because the nature of the cosmos is so vast. Understand that the process of ascension for humanity through the 7 planes of existence, as it most directly affects us in our individual ascensions, is basically, this is one aspect of our, think of it as of our evolution as souls. But there's only so much we can do while we're here on earth, right? Once we're not here on earth, we now continue evolving within the other realms. And on this Logoic plane, we are put in touch with the intent of God and are at complete oneness with that divine intent and purpose. And we know ourselves to be the I am that I am, and have totally completely transcended form. And we have become that which we sought, and are basically love/wisdom itself. Our will has become the will to good, which is the will of God. We are completely merged within the whole of things, yet likewise and forever do retain our own individuality. Henceforth live in complete unity with God, and our will and purpose becomes completely aligned with the will and purpose of the world, right? And then, just to sum it all up, we are spiritual beings living in and passing through a variety of realms. We are immortal children of God, right? The eternal creator, right? And listener, even if you don't fully believe in God right now, understand that there's a source. There's a source for everything, right? And if you like, computers and coding and all that, think of God as a great coder who basically has made everything so that basically God can experience everything from every perspective, right? Because you, the listener, are God, but experiencing reality through your own perspective, right? There's multiple, everyone's having their own experience, but ultimately we are all connected through that same shared energy. Hopefully that's making sense, but the process of ascension lies in experiencing, purifying, and mastering of all the realms. And within each realm we evolve as well, and therefore the energies of the bodies within that realm grow more refined, vibrating at higher frequencies, and thus ascending. In reality, there is no death, but only the passing into higher spheres of learning, then returning to the lower or denser ones until the lessons are learned and mastered, right? There's things in your life right now that you're working on, right? Whether you're fully aware of them. There's things like maybe self-control, right? In terms of eating or your habits. Maybe you watching too much, like TV, video games, stuff like that. And that's just to give more, earth examples, but they're within yourself and your own self-control, right? And a brief outline is that evolution takes place beyond these spheres. After it has passed through the process of initiation, the soul has fully and completely ascended back to the monadic source. So we're eternally evolving until we get back to where we started, right? And that's kind of like the process. But, just to kind of put a break in between, I'm going to put another song And this one's called On Melancholy Hill by Gorillaz. All right, so that was On Melancholy Hill by Gorillaz. And we're nearing towards the end of the hour, so I wanted to basically introduce everything as detailed as possible, but this is more, it's a lot than can be covered in an hour, right? So basically the first initiation, right? And if you don't like the word initiation, just think of it as steps, right? First step, second step, third step, etc. So the first step in terms of mastering yourself, the listener, is officially stepping in onto the path of ascension, right? And it involves mastering the basic lower physical tendencies by purifying the diet, keeping the body free from toxins as much as possible. I know it's kind of hard living here in the US, and using pure water to cleanse both the inner and outer physical vehicle, right? And this process will continue to be refined throughout subsequent initiations or steps. And Physical mastery over the lower aspects and a certain amount of purifying the body will have occurred during this initiation. And I'll move on quickly to the second initiation. Is basically you deal more fully with the control of the astral or emotional body. Think of it now, you'll be able to control your emotions better, right? And during this period, the initiator devotes much time and energy to mastering the desire self. The higher desires of the soul may supersede the lower uncontrolled desires of the personality, right? Replace personality with who you are now, right? Your current incarnation. And this is the part where emotional and psychological cleansing must begin, right? And this could take form in many ways. One way is therapy, because therapy, it might get stigmatized by some, but it just boils down to understanding yourself, understanding why you feel the way you do. Because a lot of us, we go around, we start feeling angry, we start feeling, resentful, but we have to understand that, for one, it starts at the inner child. The inner child is your pure self, your loving self. But as the years go on, the way the world kind of just shapes you through telling you who you are, telling you the way things are. For men, it's about, bottling your emotions. And that's just to give a few examples, but it's kind of that process, right? Now we move on to the third initiation or step. And, another name for it is the soul merge, because it is through this initiation that one becomes directly linked with the higher self and becomes more aware that he or she belongs to a soul family, and through meditation can intuit this fact, right? And you start becoming more geared towards group purpose through service of all, right? Instead of service to self. Because the true self is that realization that you are everything, that everyone is all connected. And the fourth initiation kind of goes off of that, but, it has been called the crucifixion. And, this is because all outer props, dependencies, and supports have been taken away or fail to give the familiar satisfaction they did before this particular initiation, right? And, basically any aspect of fear or loss that one feels during this period lasts only until the initiate learns to look at life truly as a series of lessons and to view everything through the lens of the higher self or monad, right? What some might perceive as loss is really only the negative ego aspect of self holding on to things or attaching itself to things that the spiritual mind recognizes the initiate doesn't really want or need. And so in truth, nothing is ever lost except to the lower self desires, right? Lower self, think of it as the ego. Think of it as that voice in your head that tells you to do something wrong or bad, telling you, hey, if you don't get caught, it's that type, just to give you a kind of a framework of it. And then we move on to the fifth initiation. And this is known as the monadic merger. And so the third one is the soul merge, right? Then soul incarnate and begin to fully identify itself with the oversoul. But now at the fifth, the individual now knows himself to be the higher self, begins the process of emerging with the monad or mighty I am presence itself on earth. And at this point, the relationship is between the individualized spiritual person, Sasho, and the monads. Because think of this journey as it's individual, but it's also of all, right? Because you're going to have your own, let's just say, progress, setbacks, right? And it's not about comparing to anyone, because we're all each on our own path. We're all each developing our own selves to become more understanding that we're all one, right? And that's just my phrase, but that's the truth, right? And move on to the sixth initiation is the initiation of basically ascension, which is a process that from one angle begins at the 6th initiation and is concluded at the completion of the 7th, right? And the 6th initiation, one is considered a kindergarten ascended master, and at the 7th initiation, a fully fledged ascended master, right? This occurs on the monadic or 6th plane of being itself. This is a momentous occasion, the point at which the initiate and the monad fully merge, and one knows as fact that he or she is the I am that I am, the mighty I am presence, that which we on earth humans call God, and likewise all that is God. One sees through the lens of total unity, of complete and utter oneness, therefore experiencing joy, unconditional love, divine, and the peace that passeth understanding. And the first time I read that, I was like, I just was lost for words, honestly. But this an individual you might have heard of is Paramahansa Yogananda, and here was something he had said that's quite applicable here. And this is just to paraphrase, but he said that you go along day after day working on yourself, practicing yoga, studying, meditating, and so forth, and then suddenly you find yourself being called master. But that's just to kind of give an example of what how he would phrase it. And then the final initiation, the final step in terms of this process is the 7th, and it takes a plane upon the Logoic or 7th plane, and it's also known as the resurrection. And that is the goal for which every initiate strives. It is the full and complete liberation of which the yogis themselves, they refer to as a nirvana of the Buddhist, right? Buddha himself. And it's the highest stage of samadhi, which is the ultimate goal of the meditator. It is being our full and complete essential monadic self. We are henceforth no longer called forth into the lower worlds, other than by our own free choice, in a desire to serve or in the pure seeing the need of the hour. Those who so choose to come back are known as bodhisattvas. I might have mispronounced it, but they who remain to serve out of compassion. The 7th degree initiate is fully ascended and free, functioning on the higher planes in blissful unity with the One. And I know that might have been a lot for just this episode, but it's something that I feel needs to be talked about, needs to be at least heard, and you might not fully align right now with those concepts, but truly understand that this earth reality is one of many. Just to put it simple, there's a lot of things that we have yet to understand. There's a lot of things that I have yet to understand, because I know that I do not know all, right? But we're on this path of, just think of it as trying to evolve, better yourself, because it's a never-ending journey. But the ultimate is that love is all there is. And in this world full of hate, full of divided, it's the only thing I leave you with this episode is, hey, look within. Look within, and you'll find that you have everything you need. You do. Don't look for validation from the outside world. Validate from within. And also know that you're never alone. You truly aren't. There's beings of all types helping us from all realms that want us to evolve, to want us to spread love and light. And that's why I'm dedicating myself to this path, because I've seen both sides. I might talk about the egoic self, but I've faced it. I've had to deal with it. I've had to overcome a lot of my own obstacles. But on this path, it's about understanding that, just keep on going. And I hope this helped anyone, or at least got you interested in this. But if you're curious about this, look up the author Joshua David Stone. He's made multiple books on this, And that's something I'm going to keep talking about on my podcast. But for anyone listening, I thank you for listening. And I'm going to end my hour here with one more song by Tupac called Changes, because it's one that I feel that truly embodies this concept of, hey, look around you, look around where you live. Is there anything that could change? Is there anything that could be bettered? And that's about it. So thank you all. This was the Earth Incarnation podcast. This is Eric, and peace.